Okay, so this isn't going to be a full tutorial on Adobe Audition because in order to learn Adobe Audition, you really have to take the time to focus. For this is just a basic overview of why Adobe Audition is such an important tool when it comes to editing and putting together a podcast from start to finish. Now, again, you can keep it simple. There's actually an app that I find very useful on the iPhone, and it's called Boss Jock. And it's pretty cool because it basically, what it does is I don't know if you can really see here, but it simulates an audio board. So let me see if I can, the lighting, see if I can dim it. But basically, when you're in radio, whether it's terrestrial or satellite, how it's structured within the studio dynamic is you have the host or hosts, you have an audio engineer or board op, and you have a producer. The audio engineer slash board op is the one who's sitting behind the mixing board, and there's different programs that are utilized. One of them is called NextGen or Prophet. There's another one called Media Touch that's used a lot in terrestrial radio. In satellite, we used NextGen or Prophet, and basically what it does is it gives you a board, not just the mixing board, but like a physical screen with a soundboard. So when you listen to the radio and you hear the intro to a show, or they come in with music and a rejoin, which it'll be playing like something like this, watch. Wait, I don't know why this is not playing. Of course it's not working. Oh, I get it. So you'll be able to play from the soundboard music to a rejoin. So essentially, and then the mic will come on, the pot on the mic, and then the host will start talking, and then they'll slowly fade the music down. So you're listening to 90.5 The Bean, the morning show with Roger, and we're going to get to our next guest in a little bit. But first, I want to remind you as a programming note, like all that nonsense, and then slowly fade it down. And this is going to sound crude because I'm trying to multitask here. So what Boss Jock does is it emulates that, where you're able to have little elements. So you could record, like I said in the other video, on your phone. But let's see how terrible this came out. But that dynamic of being a host with a producer and a board op, you have the board op who's controlling the sounds that are being played. They're called the elements. Then the producer is sitting there, kind of the glue, making sure everything is going together. And it all falls on the producer to pay attention, to make sure that the show's on the air, to make sure that the right elements are played at the host. If there's a paid live read, if there's a live read promoting other programming on the channel. That's a little bit inside baseball, I know. Let me see if this came out good. I think, it's still saving. But I think that it's important to know the fundamentals of radio. And with podcasting, with things like Boss Jock, it allows you, it enables you to be able to simulate that with a podcast, because sometimes people just want to record their line of thought and just want it to be dry, and that's fine too. Okay. And then the mic will come on, the pot on the mic, and then the host will start talking, and then they'll slowly fade the music down. So you're listening to 90.5 The Bean, a morning show with Roger, and we're going to get to our next guest in a little bit. But first, I want to remind you as a programming. Oh, you get it. That's terrible, and I'm ashamed. But so Boss Jock Jr. actually, and I don't know if there's a full version, but if there is, I mean, this is free, and I think that it solves the problem of if you want to have an open and you want to record and have your intro for your podcast come in. And like I mentioned in one of the previous tutorials, you can have a lavalier mic, you can get a Thunder adapter and a Yeti Blue mic that hooks up into your phone, and it can sound really good. Sound quality is super important. So that's just a little tip. But getting back to the whole dynamic of, coming from satellite and terrestrial radio, you have the producer, the board op, and the host, and it's like a song and dance. Everything comes together. It's like a symphony. Basically, the producer's like the conductor, and the board op, along with the host, are like the orchestra. And everyone has to serve their own purpose. Now, with podcasting, it's a little bit different because it's not live. You have the ability to go back and edit and fix things and listen or even put out a taste test of something that you're working on to get feedback. Live radio, if you screw up, that's it. It's in the ether. And, at least within satellite, they had on demand. So it was different from when, back in the day in old school terrestrial, where it's live. If you drop the ball, you're going to be kicking yourself in the butt for the rest of the week, the rest of the month, depending on how much of a perfectionist you are. Me personally, when it comes to radio, I am a perfectionist. When it comes to other things, well, that's a story for a different day. But with podcasting, you have the ability to have mulligans. And that's why Adobe Audition is a program, an editing program, that I feel is crucial if you really want to create a high quality podcast. Let me get a little bit of sharing my screen. Okay. So this is Adobe Audition. What this is right here, what you're seeing is this is what's called the edit view. Now, the edit view is essentially just a waveform. This is something that I recorded for the final project. It's, the podcast zone. And I already have inserted the open, and I have a little bit of a watermark in the beginning that I put before all my podcasts. Fever Dream is something that I've been working on. It's kind of just something that, puts my fingerprint on whatever I'm doing. So you can edit in here, see, and the waveform, what's interesting about a waveform is it gives you the opportunity to have a visual representation of the audio. So you can kind of see where, like right here, there's a breath, you can cut that out. Unfortunately, because, let me see if I unplug this, if I'll be able to play sound. The audio is gonna be compromised, but that's not good. Notoriety that, okay, cool, yeah, so whatever. So if you look, so the podcast one graveyard was, so if you want to edit, you can highlight and you can take something out, delete. If you want to hit Command Z and undo it. So basically this is going to be where you're going to do simple editing. And if you look over here, these are all your files. So these are all different audio files that you click on, and we'll see what we got here. So, like anything else, it's just a matter of knowing by doing, and you can see the different beats and you can see the different features. Like, for example, right here is for if you want to raise the audio or if you want it to get lower. And like I've mentioned, I cannot stress enough the importance of levels. If you look at the bottom of the screen right here, you'll see your levels. See where the cursor is? So that's good levels. If you see if it gets into the yellow part, you're still good. But if it gets into the red, that's a huge no-no. You'll see, watch. Well, sorry, I don't like Maroon 5 that much. But, again, you have to tinker. Anything when it comes to editing, whether it's video editing, whether it's audio editing, which I'm pretty efficient at both, you just have to do it. You have to mess around with it. And YouTube is incredible. I stress, and I'll try and link on the page below a good tutorial, basic tutorial of how to use Adobe Audition so that you can get an idea for it. Like I said, unfortunately, I don't have enough time, and my interview with Ralph went way over, and still kicking myself in the butt for that. But hopefully, I don't lose too many points. But I was just interested in into it. So right here, you see there's the waveform, the edit view, and then the multi-track. So the way the multi-track works is it's like a puzzle. Look at it like a puzzle. Like you see, you have your different tracks, and you can have as many tracks as possible. Like I've had sessions, and this is what this is called. When you save this, it's saved as a session that literally look like the Da Vinci Code. I mean, I've had over 50 tracks with just little nuanced things. So if you look, it all makes sense. If you look, see right here, I have the watermark on the first track. Then I have the Twilight Zone. Let me get rid of this because that's probably good. So I have the Twilight Zone theme on the second track. And then on the third track, this is my VO. This is my voiceover. This is going to be, if I'm hosting a podcast, that's going to be the part where you're talking, whether it's with a co-host, a partner, an interview, whatever. And okay, so right now I'm going to talk about, and you can set envelopes and you can fade it in, and then, effects. You can mess with the amplitude, the compression. You can put effects like delay and echo. Like I said, I suggest just tinkering and messing with it, and YouTube. But what is something that is very important, the one lesson I will give you is make sure that you save your sessions, because you can put in all this work. I mean, this is a rather, non-complex session, but you could have a session where you put in all this time and energy. And if you don't go to file and save as and save that session and save all your audio files, I mean, when I was first getting into radio and I was learning how to use Adobe, or when I was in broadcasting school, there were times when I literally wanted to jump off a building. I was just like, how did I mess up and not save this session? So be coherent of your work. And look, again, you can mute a track, you can have a solo on a track, so just have this one thing playing, and it's all color coordinated. But basically, what is important and what I want to emphasize with this whole diatribe is, for me, if you really want to be a successful podcaster and have a professional sounding podcast, you have to start to learn how to use programs like Adobe Audition. There's so many cool little features, like, for example, you hit R, right? You see this little razor, and you want to cut a piece off and move this over here. And again, Command Z, it takes you back. It's just, to me, one of the essential tools. Like I gave that list of stuff, a buyer's guide, where a Yeti Blue, a Thunder adapter. Adobe Audition is something that's very important. And with Adobe, you can get a suite. So you can have Photoshop, you could have Adobe Premiere, which is a video editing program. You could have Audition. I mean, everything comes in a one-stop shop, and you pay about like $60 a month, and you have all these creative tools at your disposal. And where podcasting is going, as it's shifting not just from audio but into video, where people have YouTube channels, there's video podcasts everywhere. Look no further than the Joe Rogan Experience. I also posted a link to Lex Fridman's podcast where he does a video format. That's the future. And like anything else, you got to keep up with the technology, you got to keep up with the times, and you have to roll with the punches. I mean, it's not easy. It's a very competitive field. There's millions of podcasts. But you can either do it if you want to monetize it, or you can do it just for fun and just for, having that creative freedom and doing something that you're passionate about, and sharing it with your friends, family. And you never know, podcasts, it's a weird, fickle industry where your podcast could blow up out of nowhere. And next thing you know, you're having people on Patreon that are donating money because they love to support good content, and you're putting out content. You're a content creator, so don't feel guilty for monetizing, because you are putting in your time and you're putting in your energy. People get paid at terrestrial radio stations, they get paid at satellite radio stations. There's no difference. You are putting in the time and you're entertaining people. So if you want to be able to monetize, you have to put out a product that's worth people spending their money. And I'm telling you, I've seen it. I've been in this industry, not only podcasting, but just the creative industry and the content creation business, that if it's good and it's quality, people will want to support you. You know, they'll want to make sure that you continue to be able to keep putting out content and that you put out something of quality. So do yourself a favor, get Adobe Audition and just really throw yourself into it, because it's extremely rewarding when you have a finished product and you put it out there and you see the downloads and you start getting feedback, you start reading the reviews. That's another thing. On iTunes and Spotify and all the different platforms, Stitcher, Google Play, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of, let me stop this, the importance of getting people to rate and review your podcast. Because with iTunes specifically, I'll use them as the gold standard because they are. With iTunes specifically, they have charts. So they'll have charts for just general podcasts, but then they'll have charts for if there's sports podcasts, if there's political podcasts, if there's news podcasts, if there's documentary podcasts talking about music, you know, every subject. Based on the rating and reviews, I'm sorry if you hear my cat snoring in the background. This cannot be helped. Cats are the worst whenever you're trying to record. That's another tip. But basically, the algorithm of iTunes and the way that they mitigate and see what podcast is in the ether or is getting more attention and garnering more attention is through the rate and reviews. So give a 5-star rating, and the more reviews, even if you have terrible reviews and good reviews, and then you have okay reviews and you have 5-star ratings and you have 2 stars, 3 stars, whatever, the more ratings and reviews that you get, it sets off an algorithm with Apple and iTunes that it's showing them that people are engaged, that they're listening to it. I mean, I've read terrible reviews about podcasts that have like 10,000 reviews. It's like Yelp. You're not going to be able to satisfy everyone. But when you're promoting your podcast, whether it's to your friends, family, or in general, on the actual podcast, you push for the ratings and reviews, for the listeners to rate and review your show, because the more ratings and reviews you have, the more that you'll be promoted and pushed by Apple and you'll show up on the charts. And I'm telling you, once you get on those charts, it's visible. People, when they get a new iPhone or they download the podcast app or whatever, most iPhones come with it, but you know what I mean. They will look and say, okay, what podcasts should I subscribe to? People get into the art of podcasting or even listening and engaging in podcasting every day. So your show will be featured and it'll be visible, and Apple will promote it on its charts. And it's like anything else. It's like the Billboard 100. That is extremely important. And it's little details like this that you need to be cognizant of. And also you need to just be very aware of what is going on, not only with technology, but within the industry, and having your finger on the pulse. So I hope this was helpful. Like I said, I'll provide a link for a good video on introductory lessons for Adobe Audition. But this was just kind of giving you an idea of how useful not only an editing program like Adobe Audition is, but like the Boss Jock Junior app. There's so many tools that you can use, ones that'll cost you some money, but ones that are free. And it's all about researching. It's all about putting in the time and the homework. So I hope this was helpful.